Hello, hello. Happy 222. Let's start with taking a breath, grounding into the space. And we'll give it a couple minutes, see if anybody jumps on. My name is Sheena with Rise Wellness, and I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be a Gene Keys contemplation call, and we're recording these calls so that at any time we could be dropping in for a super juicy meditation just to really connect with the astrology of the day and how it's showing up for us within the language of the Gene Keys. So this week we meet Gene Key 48, which is the shadow of inadequacy, the gift of resourcefulness, and the divine expression or the Siddhi of wisdom. So let's just go ahead and just take a moment to get comfortable. Just taking some grounding breaths, just really releasing the day thus far so that we can come into this moment together. So we are going to start this call with a meditation. And after the meditation, we'll go into the Gene Key contemplation. And the meditation that we're going to do is going to be based on the astrology of the week. And so we're looking at the astrology of Libra. So anytime we're looking at Gene Keys, we're looking at a snapshot of the sky. And so right now, snapshot in the sky shows Gene Key 48 with its correlation to this Libra sign. Libra being a cardinal air sign, also being a sign about justice, about balance, about harmony, and very relative on our awakening journey as we go through this Gene Key passage to see where are we out of balance, how can we bring ourselves back into union with things as simple as our breath. And so I'm going to go ahead and start this meditation, and it's going to be about 10 minutes long, and I'm just going to invite you to get into a comfortable position. If you're able to sit up with your spine erect, that's great. And if not, if it feels better to lie down, honor what your body needs and wants. You're all going to get the information the exact way that you need to. So in this meditation, we are going to learn how to harness and access the superpower of Libra. This air sign is all about balance, as its symbol is actually the scales or the justice card in the tarot deck. Libra is known for seeking justice, fairness, and a well thought out conclusion to any problem. As an air sign, Libra is intellectual and communicative in nature. Libra is also very focused on harmony in relationship with others. If you're in need of discovering more balance in your life and relationships, then Libra is definitely going to be your guiding star, the energy that you're really going to want to pull in, harness, and connect with. So for this meditation, if you haven't already, I just invite you to get into a comfortable seated position. Begin to relax your body and soften your gaze or close down your eyes if that feels in alignment for you. Just begin to let go of the world outside of you so that we can start to go within. Just observe how you're feeling in this moment. Could you relax any part of your body just a little bit more? Feel a sense of ease and peace washing over you. As you tune in with the energy today, let go of anything that happened earlier and just be here in this moment. Begin to notice the flow of your breath. smells so good over here. I've got the incense going. Feel the gentle expansion of your torso with the inhalation. Feel the deep release and relaxation of your body with the exhalation. Inhale, expand. Exhale, relax. Inhale, expand. Exhale, relax. Let go of any other thoughts as you watch your breath flowing in and flowing out for a few moments. Your breath is actually a beautiful example of the inherent balance that Libra represents. Your breath requires both the action of giving and of receiving. With the inhalation, you receive fresh breath and energy. With the exhalation, you give up the old stale breath. You couldn't have one without the other. If you're only giving and giving, you're going to run out of breath. You must also receive as much as you give. And if you're only taking and taking, you'll become saturated with breath and the breathing process stops. You must let go as much as you take in. As you observe your breath now, witness the beautiful balance between giving and receiving. Taking and letting go. Notice that you are only able to breathe in a healthy way when there's harmony between these two energies. Witness your balanced breath for a few moments now. You can consciously bring even more balance to the breath and therefore to your energy system by practicing counting the breath with this exercise. You count your inhalation and exhalation to make them equal in length. For example, as you breathe in, you would silently count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then as you breathe out, you would silently count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can choose any number that suits you. Find a comfortable counting pace and notice how long your breath lasts. Observe if your inhalation or exhalation is naturally longer. Spend a few moments now counting your breath and bringing Libra's energy of balance and harmony into your body. Witness how you feel now after balancing your breath. So often in life, we don't realize that we become imbalanced in our energy. We may give and give to others, but neglect to stop and practice receiving. Or we may focus so much on what we need and want to receive that we forget to give our time and energy to others as well. Libra will teach you that the greatest harmony in your life and in your relationships is found by creating a sense of balance. Ask yourself if you tend to be more of a giver or more of a receiver in your life and in your relationships. Are there certain areas of life or certain relationships where you have become unbalanced? Spend a few moments contemplating these questions now. Now that you've identified some areas of your life that need just a little bit more balance, you can use your breath to embody the superpower of Libra. Mm. If you're receiving more than you're giving, imagine that you're taking in breath, but not letting it go. If you're giving more than you're receiving, feel this in your body. And now imagine that you're emptying the lungs without taking in any more air. Emptying, emptying, emptying. Woo! Neither one is very comfortable. To practice receiving in your life and in your relationships, take a longer inhalation and visualize yourself taking the time to rest and meet your own needs. To practice giving in your life and in your relationships, take a longer exhalation and visualize yourself letting go of control and offering your time to others. Envision your life coming into balance and beautiful harmony now. Alrighty, you are discovering the importance of healthy balance in your life. Libra is the only air sign in the zodiac that's a cardinal sign and begins a new season. This means that Libra is balanced and communicative, but also action oriented and an initiator of change. Libra will take its time coming to a fair and just decision, but it's not going to just sit back and let things unfold. Ask yourself how Libra can help you take action in your life right now to create more harmony in your relationships. Can you be the bigger person and step up to make a change first? Can you communicate in a fair and balanced way with the people that you love? Libra's superpower will help you stand up and take action to improve the connection that we have with others. So take a moment now and just visualize yourself embodying this superpower of Libra now. With Libra in your life, you will discover harmony, clear communication, and balance in your relationships. This will help you live in a healthy and happy life. As you prepare to continue on with your day, see yourself embodying these powerful Libra qualities. Mm. And now, when you're ready, you may begin adding some gentle movement to your hands and your toes. And then, slowly, with one final deep inhale in, and exhale out. You may open your eyes and return to this Gene Key Contemplations call on the Sacred Wild with Sheena from Rise Wellness. Namaste. Mm. So I kept the doors open just in case anyone else would pop into our call. But since it's just us, what I'm going to do is just give a little bit of a share on a little contemplation on Gene Key 48. And then I think this week I'm going to go in and pull from the Wisdom Keeper's wisdom story and oracle from that. Share that wisdom story with those questions for contemplation. So this is the shadow of inadequacy. And this is the gift of resourcefulness. This is the divine expression of wisdom. Richard Rudd has a quote that I loved that says, "Wisdom lies between the words, behind the concepts. It's older than the mind. It may be reached through the mind like sunlight through a prism, but it doesn't attach itself anywhere. It emerges spontaneously right from the heart of creation. Wisdom is alive." And wisdom is this living entity, this stream of consciousness. Wisdom is rooted in not knowing. And this is when we come into the shadow around how inadequate do we feel in those times of not knowing, and how masterful can we become within that great mystery, where we actually create my story mystery and live in the trust that we have this inner well of resources within us. We are inherently good and adequate. We are inherently resourceful and full of all of the wisdom that we will ever need. And so this inadequacy stems from this fear that we can't cope with life. And how real does that fear really feel when something breaks our heart? And there's a point in that heartbreak where we truly think we're going to die. We think no one's ever going to love us again. We're never going to love anybody else again. We have had our heart completely shattered, that we've actually described it as a collective, as a shattering of a physical part of our body, as well as an emotional place. But we actually talk about this collective heartbreak. And when we are in that story of however that heartbreak shows up for us, whether we've lost our job, we've lost a loved one, we've broken up with our partner, we've got into an accident, our house has burned down, any number of ways that we can experience these traumatic, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching wounds. There's a moment that we don't think we're going to survive it. Even if it's just a brief moment, it's been so stored in our collective DNA that we don't think we're going to be able to cope and overcome whatever adversity has come our way. And so actually, the gift, as always with this gene, is how can we go deeper into the abyss of that discomfort? And Richard Rudd shares a beautiful story within his contemplation, which, if you haven't already, check out Gene Keys on Instagram, because every week they have a link that you can tap into and for free listen to the audible contemplation of whatever we're transiting that week. So that's always going to be the Gene Key that we're discussing and we're talking about in class, in these workshops and these circles. And so these contemplations give you these beautiful practical ways that Richard Rudd has digested and somatically processed the wisdom of all these gene keys, so that it's not just this complex, dense encyclopedia of information, but these gene keys are the living wisdom spoken through the teacher and spoken with poetry, as Richard Rudd does, but also with such humility that you just find yourself in his story. And so he shares this beautiful story about jumping into the abyss. He's living in Scotland, he's young, he's carefree, and he decides one night out in the middle of nature, there's this waterfall that he's gravitated towards, and it's pitch black. It's the middle of the night. He's all by himself. And this sweeping fear comes over him, like this adrenaline, this excitement, this anxiety, this mystery comes over for him, with this exhilaration of wanting to jump out into the abyss while simultaneously being horrified and unbelievably scared to jump into the water, into this well of water, completely black. Nobody is around him. I'm just like, I get like thought, like, I'm like, when I just, think about the setting of that. And so he talks about, he gives voice to leaning all the way into that fear, coming into such a place of surrender that he says, I don't even know who jumped. At some point, here I am, I've jumped, it's happened, but it's not even a conscious choice. Life moved through him. And that's what all of these genes are, is allowing ourselves to get out of the way for life to move through us, so that we can be the hollow bone, so that we can channel the wisdom that's inherently in our bones, in our body. So this is why we know now that we need somatic processing in order to get into our body, to move our stories through us. There's been so many times in our life that we've been suppressed, that we've been stifled, that maybe as a child we were told by our parents, shh, 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 shh. There's a voice in you that heard that shh, 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 that probably created that own inner narrative that said your words are not that important, stuff them back down. That inadequacy starts to manifest in our body as illness. And so this gene, the physiology, is the spleen. And so we really have to think about, how clean are we keeping our chalice, our energy field, and also the density within our body? How clean is our diet? Our diet is our energy, it's our chi, it's our life force energy. So are we honoring this body as a sacred vessel and keeping our thoughts and our digestion clean, so that we can move through life more cleanly, so that we can tap into the wisdom, so that we can allow life to flow? Because when we don't, life contracts, like we did when we didn't have balanced breathing in the meditation. We have a contraction, we can somatically feel it in our body. So the wisdom comes when we actually allow ourselves enough time to rest and soften into this human experience, that we are these multidimensional beings living on these other realms, consuming so much information on a daily basis that can feel like an overload in our system. So integration as human beings mean, how many times are we switching off our devices and getting our feet in the earth so we can actually harmonize with the earth? So I thought it was so interesting that today, right before this call, 2 minutes, 4 minutes before the call, we had the national alarm system alarm go off. And so I've been putting messages out on my social media platforms today, just inviting in this deep breath, inviting in this opportunity to stay regulated. So outside noise, things like alarms and sirens and things, are not disrupting our inner peace. Or when it does, we fine-tune such a practice of bringing ourselves back into alignment, where we don't have to fall into that fear-based collective story that alarms mean something bad is happening to me. And so this gene key about tapping into our inner wisdom is about allowing this faith in the world, this faith in our world, that we can jump into the abyss and life will be there for us. Life will have our back. So this gene really asks you to look into, how are you being called to move more into your own abyss, into your own mystery? So according to the gene key, this is called the bottomless well. Sometimes that's how shadow work can feel, like a bottomless well, like you're like, what the hell? Until we have that moment of communion with the divine, where we have that moment of remembrance. We have that sudden enlightenment, that awakening, where we say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought I was anything less than perfect in my imperfection. I am all, I am that, I am intrinsically connected to everything. That means that I am part of this diamond. I am a fractal of this. I am a goddess connected to a greater source of goddessness. That is that source connection that we're all a part of, intrinsically connected to. So this inadequacy is simply a program that keeps getting put in and repeated throughout our lives. And it comes when we're 8 to 14 years old, right in that time of emotional maturity, when we're going in to our sexuality, our puberty, our hormones are going crazy. And now this is when we're coming into our greatest aliveness. And between these ages, there's going to be something happen. Something's going to stick out for us, especially if you're working closely with this gene, or if this gene shows up in your profile. This is a very transformative, life-altering gene. I can tell you that while this gene is not in my profile, it was in someone's profile close to me, which caused a very big activation by being within close proximity of it and feeling it move through me. It actually resulted in you know what, I'm not going to say that. So this fear is our fear of our annihilation. It's the fear that we're never going to face things in the same way. Okay, I'm going to say it. Okay. So the thing I was going to say is, I had a friend that had a psychotic break. That's actually his life's work, is gene key 48. As he went through a process in his spiritual awakening, when there was such a shift, such a contrast between one reality and the reality that was going on inside his mind, there became a psychotic break. And so that actually catapulted him into his awakening, where that was a heartbreaking open experience. You know, in the course of our lives, we might break our hearts over and over and over again, but there is that one moment in our life that causes that before and after where we are never the same. That before and after, that heart cracking open experience is where the light starts flooding in. That's when we actually tap in to something that we didn't even know was there. And that feeling has this quality of gentleness, this innocence, this mothering quality, this divine essence of this benevolent universe that always has our back, that even in our heartbreaking open experience, we are actually being embraced by something greater than us. And so it's actually through these, towers crashing, rock bottom seemingly moments that we tap in to the divine wisdom that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through this heartache, and that's what happens. We can go through an experience where we just don't think we're going to survive it. And then 6 months go by, and all of a sudden you wake up and you realize, holy shit, I survived that. And holy shit, when I say that person's name, it doesn't have that same charge to it because I processed. And part of processing is simply just giving it time. Just like we did at the beginning of this call, we took time to bring ourselves back into sacred union just through our breath. And so this week really invites you to give yourself time. Anything that disrupts your equilibrium, alarms going off, sirens going off, fear mongering out there, collective shadow, whatever it is, how could you tune into your breath? The wisdom already lies within you. That inspiration, inspira, is the Latin origin of spirit. Spirit lies within you. It's in your breath. As soon as you can slow down and connect with your breath, you will connect with your inherent wisdom. Richard Rudd says there's nothing to fear. Go gently into the abyss. So between the ages of 8 to 14, what happened in your life? What created that imprint for you that shifted one way of being to another way of being? And maybe that was created again through a karmic loop to show you another way to show up for yourself, to show you how you have evolved since then. And so, let's see. And so the divine essence of this gene key is most yin, just like the gene key of unity. This is the second most yin gene in there, which is the divine feminine. This is the goddess. That abyss, that great mystery, that's what we know is that creator consciousness. The more we know, the less we know. And that's the great mystery of the woman. So anyone that is a woman that comes into her womanliness is invited to just really, really own that mystery, own all the flavors of your uniqueness, your own authentic beauty that you are here to emanate and share and shine as the creatrix that you are. So many of us have been taught to look at the fashion magazines and follow the beauty tips online and follow these, fashionistas and yada, yada. The list goes on, and how we can be told, especially as women, that we are imperfect or we are inadequate, that there's a beauty product, that there's a service, that there's something out that we can do to better ourselves. There's so much artificial beauty out there that it takes someone really having a polarization shift in life to say, hold up. I'm going to stop living from the outside in, and I'm actually going to start living from the inside out. And that shift, the way that we start to interact with the world when we make that shift, is we just start to glow, we start to emanate, illuminate, and we share that gift with others who then start to find their own well of beauty within them. And so Libra season, this is the season of beauty. So of course, this would be the gene key that we'd be coming into, is just seeing the beauty in Mother Nature, even as she is shedding her leaves, even as she is isolating and going into that mystery of the winter and starting that process of descent. Even in that season, she is still impeccably perfect, which is the wisdom, the truth of, the great mystery. So I love that Richard Rudd speaks about the Mona Lisa and references the Mona Lisa. When you think about woman, the wisdom of woman, you see it in the smile, or that little knowing smile of Mona Lisa, that little smirk that says, I know something you don't know. It's just such a beautiful imagery of this wisdom. And, Richard Rudd talks about it, there are not a lot of spiritual teachers out there that are women, but we all know that women are these divine vessels for creating life. Life comes through us, whether it comes in the form of a human child or an idea child. We are cyclical beings bleeding with the moon. And therefore, that connection with creating, with the creatrix, that connection with life, of bringing something into physical form, that's not something that anybody can intellectualize. That's not something that anybody else can understand if they don't have that inherent wisdom within their body. We don't know how a child is going to come out with 10 fingers and 10 toes. We don't know how it's going to work its way out of the woman's body, but somehow it does. And it does every single time. And that is just the great mystery of the yin, of the feminine energy. And so one thing that I think is so important to really think about with this gene and with this flavor of this week in Libra season is, as we said in the meditation, Libra loves balance and harmony, but it also loves equality and social justice. And so there's that part of you that is here to speak up and share your unique message with the world, whatever that message is, and whoever thinks, whoever has their own opinion on how beautiful or not beautiful it is. One of the most, sacred things about women, about the human species, is that we're not just here to be nice. We're not just here to be looked at. We're not here to just be pretty. There's so many, versions of the woman that's so sacred in her rawness. And, in all species, in our authenticity is what makes us such a divine creation, because it brings out our uniqueness. So, so let's go back to the ages of 8 to 14. Now, this is when we're coming into, our puberty. We're discovering boys. We're having our first heartbreaks, so this might bring us back to a time where we had our heart broken. In that time of adolescence, we thought we're never going to get over this heartbreak. I was so in love. I was already planning out our kids' names. We were playing MASH. We already knew where we were going to go to college together. We were together for 14, days. And it seems like the biggest tragedy of your life, because at 14 years old, it is. And then somehow another part of our life comes and happens, and we realize, wow, I got over that. And I didn't get over that because someone counseled me, someone was there for me. I got over it because I gave myself the time to grieve and process my emotions. I got over it because I didn't actually intellectualize my feelings. I gave myself time to feel them and somatically process them. And I know for me, when I was a teenager, I loved art. I loved creativity. I loved poetry. I loved expressing myself through fashion. Not much has changed. And, and so whenever, and everything was so big. I've always been a highly sensitive person. Feelings were so big. Heartbreak was so raw. You know, yeah, it didn't feel like I was going to get over it. And somehow here we are on the other side of it, and we've gotten over it. And I can think of another example in, recent years where I had another heartbreak and I didn't think I was going to get over it. I didn't think I was going to be the same on the other side of it. And somehow, and by some grace of God, here we are. So now I'm going to come on with the wisdom story. And then I'm going to share what comes up to come out from that wisdom story. This is using Rosie Aronson's deck, The 64 Faces of Awakening. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful accomplice to your Gene Keys book to give you digestible stories that take all that complex data and put it into a personal reflection of a story that you're always going to have a lot of resonance to because it's sharing that collective thread. So, and then there's also beautiful, beautiful imagery with a lot of symbols and a lot of things going on here. So this is the card for 48. We can see the owl as the pineal gland on the third eye, that owl being such a beautiful animal totem to represent wisdom. We've got some lotus flowers, that lotus coming up from the mud. That's a process. These plants growing, it takes time. We don't harvest the seed the day we plant it. We've got some Native American feathers in there. We've got a spider web growing out of the nose. Just a lot of beautiful, beautiful things you can spend a lot of time just in there on. Okay, so it starts with a Richard Rudd quote. If we don't know how to handle emotional states with equanimity, integrity, and clarity, we never fully enter adulthood, but remain at some level children. Programming partner 21, which is the shadow of authority, the gift of control, the shadow of control, the gift of authority, and the highest expression of valor. My wisdom story. My father was an idealistic young man who was willing to sacrifice his life for our country. He admired the bravery, cooperation, and loyalty he experienced during the war, almost as much as he hated the way he and his fellow soldiers were received after it ended. He felt dropped and forgotten by the very people for whom he gave everything, and manipulated by the government he had served with such devotion. By the time I was halfway through elementary school, he was a bitter, paranoid, and unscrupulous man. When he wasn't obsessing over conspiracy theories and spying on the government, he was unleashing his anger at me, constantly criticizing me for being undisciplined and unattractive. My mother was consumed with making ends meet, running the household, and keeping up appearances. All she wanted was for me to do well in school and look good, so that the neighbors wouldn't notice what was happening behind closed doors. As my sense of unworthiness grew, I found myself glued to the television, watching soap operas filled with beautiful people and commercials that flaunted perfect women who were gorgeous, successful, and seductive all at once. In comparison, I felt unbelievably bland. As I entered puberty, the pleasure I felt to look, act, and perform well increased. I became obsessed with my appearance, grades, and getting into the best college. I couldn't sleep before tests. Desperate to fill the void in my belly and calm my nervous system, I binged and purged with food. It wasn't until I was in high school, thanks to a wonderful English teacher who encouraged me to write about my most private pain, that I came to understand how my life had been hijacked by a deep sense of inadequacy. My teacher didn't just see my suffering. She saw a depth, sensitivity, and wisdom in me I didn't even know was there. She kept pulling it out of me. I have her to thank for the way my life unfolded as I blossomed into a young woman, came to trust my inner knowing, and fell in love with earth-based spirituality. Today, I sleep peacefully and have the great honor of facilitating emotionally and spiritually healing rites of passage for 7 to 14-year-olds. Every day, I am inspired and amazed by the inner resources of these kids. My gift to you: do not hide from the well of darkness within you, for there's light and boundless riches at the bottom of that well. You can find elegant solutions to all of life's challenges and just the right support when you need it most. But first, you must reassure your body that it's safe, even when you don't have all the answers. Let the parent in you love and hold the child within, even in the presence of fear. Over time, you will spontaneously dive into the void and discover more warmth there than you had ever experienced or had ever expected. Trust your inner knowing, and the people around you will start dipping into your well and drawing out more resourcefulness and wisdom than you realize you had. You are far more adequate than you can possibly imagine. Questions for contemplation. What is your relationship to fear? These are great, great, great questions to jot down or think about and start journaling about, or even just spending a little bit of time walking in nature, letting them just kind of land. So let me start again. What is your relationship to fear? Starting off strong. Do you tend to repress and avoid your fear? Or do you tend to act it out or react to it? Where do you feel most inadequate? How does not feeling good enough impact your thoughts, feelings, and actions? Do people tend to feel intimidated or inadequate around you? Who in your life has truly seen your wisdom and pulled it out? Think of a time you experienced or expressed your wisdom. Write down 10 of your greatest inner resources. Notice the feelings and thoughts that arise as you do this. So I'm going to read, because these are really short, I'm going to read the repressive and the reactive nature of this shadow frequency, because sometimes I don't think that I give enough attention to how it can show up in a reactive person and in an introverted person, or as Carl Jung would say, an introvert and an extrovert. So repressive nature shows up as bland. Again, this is the shadow of inadequacy. So inadequacy in someone that is more repressed is going to show up as bland. There are two types of people within the collective shadow frequency: those who duck their heads and give in to their fears, repressive, and those who project their fears externally onto others, reactive. The repressive nature of the 48th shadow forms the collective blandness of the mass consciousness. They are the sheep whose fears are buried beneath the surface by whatever the system tells them. The majority of people on our planet fall into this category. This consciousness is too afraid to look into the fear within its body, so it settles into the fixed patterns given to it by society. Of course, life arranges events in all people's lives that force them to face their fears. However, unless such events precipitate a major awakening, the repressive nature tends to bury its head even deeper in the sand once such periods pass. And now I'm going to read the reactive nature, the unscrupulous. Sometimes you might find that you are more reactive than you are introverted in some, and then maybe the other on others. That makes no sense, but you get it. The other side of the 48th shadow is seen in those who feed the general sense of inadequacy in others. These are people whose rage does not allow them to admit that they're also afraid, and so they become victims of the system in a different way. These people use their knowledge to manipulate the fear of others while hiding behind the system. They keep their own fear at bay by externalizing it, and they increase the general level of fear by their unscrupulous actions. Such behavior greatly reinforces the shadow frequency. It's because of these people that humanity feels a general paranoia. We know that there are people in positions of power throughout the system who do not care about others at all, but we can always see and identify them. This gives us the feeling that all of society is impersonal and beyond our control. So I think two things to share on that is just reflecting again that 4 minutes to this call, we had an alarm that went off to every person's device on in this country. And when most people think about alarms, they can go right back into a shadow fear place, because there's a disrupt in our equilibrium. When we hear a siren, we are programmed to respond to fear. And now, when we've had so much fear from so many directions, there's ways that that can break us down, that can put us into a place of just general paranoia about what's coming next, the uncertainty of it all. And so I just really want to take a moment just to breathe into a moment, just for a moment, just to breathe into the safety of this now moment, that those sort of vibrations are always going to be out there. Unfortunately, part of this 3D reality is dealing with the contrast. So as much as you come into your light, there's going to be the shadow there. And we know that after 2020, there's been just so much unveiling of how corrupt and shadow so many of the institutions and structures are around us, that we got to take it with a grain of salt. We got to make sure that the most important currency in the world that we're thinking about is our own resourcefulness. It's not the greed of the material consumerism. It's actually that inner well of resource that we all have available to us. So anytime that we're out in public and we're in traffic, or we're at the mall, or we're behind a slow person at checkout at the supermarket, or anytime that we feel into that collective shadow, that low vibration, that place of fear and discomfort, is up to us as light workers, as way showers, as awakened divine souls on this planet now, to restore the balance. As within, so without. You taking a deep breath behind that slow person at the checkout is actually you taking a breath for the person behind you, and the person behind you, and the person behind you, because we don't even consciously understand the ripples of our vibration, but we've got to believe that it's very, very powerful. I have heard that we have the power to influence like 600,000 vibrations, like one person. That's one smile that gets re-smiled 600,000 times. That's the power of that momentum that we can build. And that momentum becomes that inherent gift that we have, that resourcefulness, that no matter what is going on in the world, I can restore peace and harmony in my body. I can tune in to that spirit of the Libra, that justice of the scales, to come in to equilibrium. And in that equilibrium, important to note that integration means that if there's been something off balance now, that maybe we need to do something over here to bring it back into balance. So maybe the scales don't always look even every season of every day, because we have to have our cyclical nature bringing things out of balance to bring them back into balance. And so this week really asks you to think about, where do you feel inadequate? What is something that you're not coping with? And what are you doing in that place of not coping that's actually been self-sabotaging? And are you ready and willing to look at those coping mechanisms to see a different choice, to be resourceful and find a different way to do things? We're at the end of the day, we're all here to reparent ourselves. And so how we don't have we can't point our fingers at our parents anymore. We could do that for enough time. Now it's our responsibility. And at some point, we got to take accountability. We got to own up to that. Our parents are never going to be the people that we need them to be. They're the people that they were signed up to be, that we co-created that curriculum and signed up for them to be that little whisper in our ear, or sometimes that siren or alarm or scream, depending on our family dynamics. But they're the ones keeping us in check. So every single person that's giving you that unease, remember how they are bringing you back into balance by showing you where you are out of balance. So where are you leaking out your energy? Where is it draining out by holding on to a fear about something, holding on to a lack vibration, a scarcity vibration? This is something that's definitely very deep in my system, this deep well of always coming back to this inherent fear that I have, that I'm inadequate, that I'm not enough. And so, my own personal share, um, and a couple ways that I'm going to share that I relate to this, Jean, is, and I'm sharing this because I have done a lot of work on these things, and I believe that I was here to share these stories from a place of empowerment after a lot of deep healing and going into the deep abyss of my own consciousness to reparent and process the things that I've experienced in my life. So I want to say that as a disclaimer as I speak this out into this void, knowing this can go out into a million different portals, and I'm okay with that. I trust wherever this goes, that whoever needs to hear these stories will hear these stories, and is aligned with this frequency to hear these stories. So ages 8 to 14, I'm going to pull out one particular example that came into my consciousness while meditating, thinking about this, Jean. And I was 16 years old. I went to a sleepover with my girlfriends, get to the sleepover, and I realized that there's drinking, there's drugs, they've invited boys over, and now it's a party. I'm this sober little naive thing. I am, not going to be bothered with this party. But it's a very uncomfortable situation to be in, as you can imagine. My friends are it's now, a different situation than I thought it was going to be. And so at one, and another point that feels relevant is one of the people that came to this party brought their child. This child was probably 6 or 7, maybe 5 or 6. And so I'm taking care of this child where people are drinking and partying around me. So I end up putting her to bed, gets late, I'm getting tired, I get drugged. I get drugged and I get sexually abused. I go through my own internal process of what's even happening to me after the abuse, because I'm on drugs and I don't know that I'm on drugs. I'm just really disassociated, and I've got, a lot of very toxic thoughts going on in my head of really wanting to escape and really wanting to get out of the situation. And so my friends end up calling my parents and saying, Sheena's been drugged. I don't know how to tell you this. Obviously busted. We had a party and Sheena's been drugged and she's freaking out. You're going to have to come pick her up. And so it takes a very long time for my parents to get there. We live very far away from where this is all at. And my parents get there and they take me to the hospital. I'm very out of sorts. I don't really know what's going on. At one point, I was laughing hysterically. At another point, I was sobbing hysterically. I was on a number of different things. And I get to the hospital. We go through some questioning, some things. I have my stomach pumped. And then there's a drive home. The drive home is complete radio silence. There's not even the radio on. And so there's about an hour and a half drive of silence. After that period, I get another maybe 3 weeks of the silent treatment from my parents. And so I'm navigating the fact that I just got sexually abused and drugged by a complete stranger. And my parents, who I had this Disney fairy tale were coming to rescue me, to pick me up, actually didn't do anything but tragically harm my emotional development and psyche at that time, because their inability to allow me to process my emotions caused me to suffocate, suppress them, and then go out with an inherent wound that I was inadequate, that I wasn't worth taking care of, that I wasn't worth more than that. And so in my experience, I can remember them not wanting to get the rape kit at the hospital. And not it was just it was 100% shown to me that we're never going to talk about this. This is a skeleton we are putting in the closet. And so there was a lot of shame, and this is my first sexual experience, and it was not something that was welcomed. So now how do I navigate into the world after this? Now, what that created was that, exactly like Richard Rudd says, that shift from 8 to 14. So that was the imprint that went off that said there's an inherent unworthiness within me. There's an inadequacy. And now, I've been tainted, right? So now we go, because life comes in cycles. Now we go fast forward to 2020, and I'm in partnership, and the conversation comes up around having children, and I start realizing that there's a part of me that would love to have children, because there's actually been an inadequacy in me around not being a mother, but really, really, really wanting to be a mother. So this particular week, we have in Deborah Silverman's astrology school, and we were discussing our North Node. And so our North Node in this lifetime, according to our birth chart and astrology, is what we're insatiable for, the thing that we're moving towards in life. So the thing I'm insatiable for and moving towards in life is in the sign of Cancer. And it's just a cosmic joke, because this is home, this is family. The archetype of the North Node in Cancer is the full-time mother. And here I am, of someone that's turned 40 this year, that doesn't have any children, but actually had a million lifetimes of really, really wanting to be a mother. So I was in this union where that split really happened, where I said, I could go into this partnership. I could stay in this partnership for better or worse, because it was for better or for worse. It was tumultuous. And I could see if I could ride the waves of this, because I felt like there could be motherhood in there for me, and that timeline could be in there for me. Or I could go into the great abyss. I could trust that if I release this partner, because it wasn't in full harmony, and it was actually seeing a bigger picture of, if I actually am not a mom, I could actually work with people's inner children in sacred ceremony, in esoteric healing. So that kind of little voice turned on, that, wow, this insatiable desire for family and for home could actually be for the planet, for humanity, for this way that I hadn't even given enough conscious intention to. And so there was a part in that relationship, and leaving one relationship that clearly showed the timeline of being a mother, and to which I said, it ain't it. It ain't it. And I went into the abyss in my own inadequacy, saying, my time clock just went from here to here, that if I was going to be a mom, I've got about this many seconds to do it, is how it was feeling in my body, which is actually the shadow of impatience. That's my radiance. It's in my body. So there's a clock that's always going on in there. And so that inadequacy became so heightened, where I was feeling like, did I just release the one opportunity that I had to be a mom? And I trusted. I allowed myself to really tap into my own well of wisdom and resourcefulness within me. And I got into a prayer, and I got into a journaling manifestation of exactly what I wanted in partnership. And then fast forward, now I'm in that sacred union, I'm in that partnership. And had we decided to follow through the North Node in Cancer to be the full-time parent, I wouldn't be able to hold virtual spaces. I wouldn't be able to, go to these workshops and do these things to help work with the gene keys and people's inner child, because all of that energy and concentration would be going, into family and home. So there's that paradox for me that goes off. Does that make me inadequate that I didn't have children? Am I less of a woman? Because there's a lot of programs in society that will say that I'm less of a woman by not having my own children. There's a lot of programs that are going to make me feel inadequate. And there's a lot of times that I aligned with that story, that victim story of feeling inadequate. But something so beautiful happened in the release of that partnership, because that was a heartbreaking open experience, because I so consciously watched myself say goodbye to a timeline that could give me a false sense of safety and comfort. And I realized that that's actually what being a mom could provide me in this lifetime. And with my Leo rising, I don't actually believe that it was meant to be in the home. I think I'm bringing childlike play to the masses, to the collective, to something much greater than I'd have the energy to do by myself at home or just in partnership with one other person at home. So I share that because we all have our own places where we have felt inadequate. And there's always been that place where we had to come into our own equilibrium, our own intuitive knowing our own balance to say, what do I actually want to be happy? I want to make an impact. I do want to cure and heal families and bloodlines, but I can make a bigger impact outside of my home. My partner and I can work together as, parents for humanity in this way that's so much more expansive than I had the capacity to think about in that old relationship. But you better believe that there was that heartbreak, that there was that inadequacy that I felt in that heart breaking open of, will I ever find love? Will I ever be a mom? Will I be enough if I'm not a mom? So a lot of things in there. And also, and I shared that first story because that shows that also that breaking point of, this showed me how resourceful I needed to be, because this showed me in your particular family dynamic that you co-created. You signed up for this to learn and evolve from this. You're going to come back to this with a new perspective, and boy, have I. And I've come back to that to say I co-created that really, really difficult experience so that I could have a lot of time digesting how that felt in my body, to be silenced, to be suppressed, to not have someone hold space for me when I really needed to process big things. And now it's a part of my daily practice. What a gift that now a daily part of my day is devoted to me feeling my things, to me feeling my connection with something greater than me, so that I can process and release the traumatic experiences that have happened in my life. What a blessing. We're not always going to feel like that in the moment, but it is a blessing to come back to, because it was not right. It was not just. In the spirit of Libra, it was not just to have two parents not show up for me in the way that I emotionally needed them to, as somebody that was a teenager, as someone that was innocent and a child. And through their lack of resourcefulness, I tapped into my own. And I was able to cultivate a practice of coming back into my own inherent worth, that what happened to me was not okay. And right now they're saying 1 in 3 women will be sexually abused in the course of her life. That is not okay. And the fact that so many women are having these experiences is just more fuel to the fire, that we rise from the ashes as Phoenix, that we are here to share a different story. We're here to share the wisdom that's in our bones. Think about how beautiful it is to purify your body, to come into your own reclamation of the divinity of your body, how sacred your holy temple is. One of the most beautiful experiences in life that you can give yourself now is a pleasure ceremony, is to cultivate that beautiful relationship with your body so that you can remember why you're here. We are here to make love. We are here to inspire beauty. We are here to create, and the woman, and only the woman, knows how to create something from nothing through her body. There could be nothing inadequate about that. There has been a lot of stories, especially perpetuated by patriarchy, and so many of these systems are coming down right now, and they're crashing down, and some of them will look really ugly as they are crashing down, but they're all inviting us to look at the own patriarchy within us. Where is there a voice that's still suppressing yourself? Where is that a voice that comes on when you're eating that says, don't eat that, you don't deserve that? Or that says, eat that, you don't deserve a healthier choice? You know, where is that body image, that distortion? Where's that loop? Where's that story playing? What was that experience that happened between 8 to 14 that has probably recreated itself in some way, and each time has given you more power to come into your voice with it, to share it from the rooftops, to say what happened to me was not okay. And that's why it's part of my gift. It's part of my dharma, my karma infused into my dharma is to help people come back to their own divinity, to come back to the goddess that lies within them, to remember how sacred their temple it is. There's how sacred their temple is, especially if there was some place along the way where either you, by treating your body in a self-sabotaging way, or somebody else painted the picture that you are not the most holy temple on this universe, because you are. Thank you for spending this time with me. It's 333. Let's make a wish. Let's take a moment of silence just to integrate and breathe all of that in. You are perfectly imperfect. You are perfect in your imperfections. Wisdom takes time. This is something that we find that comes out later in life. We can't be wise at 25. We have to go through the shit. We have to have the things that break us down so that we can rebuild ourselves and walk out of the fire. So I'm sending you all so much love. Namaste.